Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is Freedom. This is the Breaking Free show, and we always talk about ways that each of us can experience our freedom, be free, build a world, a life, a home, a business, a street, a community that's based on freedom and each other's right to be free and have our liberties and do the things that we want to do and just step out there on that skinny branch and not feel alone. So I want to welcome all of you here today. I know that your time is so very precious, and so I am so very honored that you have chosen to share some of that with us here. I want to welcome Amnon, I'm welcoming Hello.
Hello.
Amnon, the producer. How you doing?
Fine, how are you?
I'm good. You're doing all right?
Doing just fine.
Anything interesting happening in your life lately?
No.
No?
No.
Same
and
old,
I want
same
to keep
old?
it like that.
All right, that
It's
could be
fine.
good.
Yeah.
That could be good. And I just want to, on the air, I want to thank my mommy because she gave me this beautiful cameo necklace that I have
Who
loved.
is that? I was trying to figure out.
It's a beautiful, I think she looks like she's Indian or Gypsy. And my mother gave this to me, and I've loved this for years and years and years and years and years. And she shared it with me for my birthday, which was a couple of months ago. So I want to thank my mommy for doing that. So, you know, we always have heartfelt stories, heartfelt people, just great shows on. They're always different each and every week. We bring about something that will help each and every one of us do something. A tool, a technique, a strategy, a mission, something that will chip away at some of the stuff that we carry around with us. And today, I'm really happy to have my guest on. And he's really a cool guy, Dan Galloway. He is a speaker, full of life, full of charm, vigor, humor, and he's full of guts. He has ADHD, and that's his topic of discussion wherever he goes. He is here to break the barriers, to let you understand what ADD, ADHD is all about, how you can live with it, how you can live with somebody with it, how you can honor it in yourself, how we all can take a look at these things. Because you know what? Too often we see things and we shy away from it because we don't know enough. And then, you know, it just builds a thickness around this stuff, and we don't know what to do with it. And so today we're gonna look at a subject that a lot of people, a lot of kids, a lot of adults are now finding out that they are it, they have it, they live with it. But it doesn't have to, you know, devastate you. It's a gift. And that's what we're going to be looking at today is how ADHD can be used, accessed, delighted as a gift in your life. So with that, I want to welcome Dan Galloway to our show. Welcome. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for having me. This is great.
It's my pleasure. So why don't you, in your own words, give a little bit of your journey with ADHD? And why have you chosen yourself to be this messenger?
Okay. Thanks for asking that question. It's a great way to start. Boy, how do I, how did I come to the conclusion that maybe I could be one of many messengers? Because there are a lot of messengers out there. For example, on my Twitter account, it seems like every day I'm getting another follower, and I'm also following others. And so it's not just me. We have all kinds of people out there. You have coaches, of course, who are certified in it. You have doctors. You have people like me who have. I haven't gone to medical school, but I've lived it since entering Earth's atmosphere many years ago. In fact, I did the math. I've been on Earth more than 18,000 days. So as far as credibility goes, I feel like that definitely should be enough because I've been living it. And I mean, I have been living with the full-blown version, not that I'm just distracted by a bird or maybe distracted by a plane. Because I think we have some people out there who are maybe even getting medication and they don't even have ADHD because it's not just about being distracted by a bird. There's also impulsivity and hyperactivity And that, if you just imagine combining those three things, I mean, the inattention, the impulsivity, and the hyperactivity, when you add all that up, it can make for a pretty challenging scenario. And so there's definitely just for lack of better words, I'll say there's a darker side than people realize. I think, again, you have some people who think it's just maybe being distracted a little bit. There's a darker side. As I said, when you add up some of the things that make it up, it's definitely can create all kinds of challenges and then ramifications thereof. But there's also a very wonderful side to ADHD, and that is really my message. I mean, I do want people to understand that it is more than being distracted by a squirrel, because it's much more than that. But on the other hand, I also want people to know that, for example, Walt Disney had ADHD. And again, these are experts who've studied, they've studied characteristics and the people themselves and what they've accomplished and the skills that they've used over the years and align them with different things, different criteria and all that. And Walt Disney is definitely one that had ADHD. Walt Disney. And see, people don't realize that Henry Ford had ADHD. I think the one that a lot of people know about as far as having ADHD would be Thomas Edison. I think that a lot of people have heard that, and that's true. Will Smith, Dustin Hoffman. Of course, these people are still with us. You have Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, and those two might not surprise a lot of people because of their I don't want to. In fact, I don't want to use the word hyperactivity. In fact, I only used it earlier because that's one of the criteria. But I'd like to call it enthusiasm. And as you know, Robin Williams and Jim Carrey have that enthusiasm that is obvious. But anyhow, so when I was growing up, I'd have a real hard time with reading. Okay, so now I'm going to backtrack. Now we have a flashback here. So I wanted to kind of set up kind of where I am with it, and being a speaker on other topics over the years, I've decided that little by little I finally got the guts that I had been working on developing enough of the guts to go ahead and start to do this, because this is a very personal thing. And but going back all the way to again entering Earth's atmosphere, I had a real hard time with reading. So the teachers would say, read page 1 through 762 by tomorrow. And I'd be like, sounds good. I'd go home and I'd read about 3 sentences and I was gone. I was somewhere else. I mean, not just maybe figuratively somewhere else. But that was the first step. And then I was literally gone. I mean, I was going to do anything else but sit and read. It wasn't that I didn't want to read. I remember this very distinctly. I really wanted to be able to do that, but my attention, there was no attention for that. It wasn't stimulating enough for me. Whereas let me be active, let me go play baseball, and by the way, and I realize a lot of people would say, well, of course that other stuff is more appealing. No, but I mean, I really struggled with this. And people who have ADHD, I can't speak for every single one of them, of course, but it's a very common scenario, is reading is really hard. Not that we don't want to, but our mind starts thinking about other things that, frankly, we see as more fun, more exciting, and there's a stimulation piece within us. We need to be stimulated.
Dan, can I interrupt you just a minute?
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to sip a little water. If that's okay,
good. So. Sip. Because I want to understand, obviously, I don't want to spend time in the dark side. We spend too much time in the dark side all the time.
Absolutely.
And so we want to break free from the dark side. Not that we don't want to acknowledge that that's part of where you come from, but that's where freedom comes from, the dark side. I mean, you don't experience, it's hard to experience freedom unless you're freeing yourself from something. So there is a darkness to many things. Just explain to me, because I am not a person, I mean, I can get distracted too, but I can bring myself back. I can be enthused, but I can bring myself back. Just tell me, how does it feel? Is it like you're spinning? Is it like you're flying? Tell me, paint me a picture of that moment when you want to jump, like, are you jumping out of your skin? Tell me what that's like.
For example, if I was needing to try to read, or just to sit down in general?
Just whatever that feeling is when you know that you're being distracted, when you're hyper and you can't concentrate. What is that feeling like in that moment? Okay.
I'm sure that a lot of people have heard of the hyperfocus. I can, and am more than willing, because I love it, I can sit down, sit still, And as long as it's creativity that I'm doing, I am working on a book about what I've been through. I work on my website, all kinds of other things that involve creativity. So in that regard, sitting still, it's a nice little calm place for me when I'm using my creativity. But for example, reports and all the stuff that kind of comes with our life now, I mean, it's very complicated. Our life is paper filled. Papers are, whether it's just electronic paper or, the old fashioned way of actually having paper in front of you and doing reports and all that. That's when I'm climbing the walls and literally climbing out of my skin. I think that's an expression people use. But anyhow, and one of the best ways I can describe this is, for example, on a weekend. Okay, during the weekend, I try to do things that during the week I'm not going to touch, like my hobbies, and I'll vacuum the car, and I'm active. And my wife, who is the most patient woman on the planet, and I don't mean just North Carolina or Virginia or Maryland, Southeast, whatever, the entire planet. She's the most patient woman in the world. She'll walk into a room and she'll see that I have 17 things going on. And what she has now come to understand is I'm in my element that way because it's not sequential. At least for me, it's not sequential. I get distracted very easy by I'm trying to think of one example here. Maybe the vacuuming. I go, I've got some things on the floor. Let me go ahead and vacuum. And then immediately I think, oh, you know what? The car has to get vacuumed. Let me vacuum the car. And on my way to get something else, like maybe the polish that I want to use in the car, then I see that there's a load of laundry we need to do. And so by the end of the weekend, almost everything gets done. It's just not sequential. So, I mean, it's just this and this and this. And for a while, it looks like there's just 17 projects that are never going to be done. And it looks like total disarray. But it's not, and it's truly in my mind at that point it's not disarray because I'm enjoying being up and active. But back to your initial question, because you were talking about like if I'm sitting there maybe and I'm reading, and I'm thinking, or I'm trying to read, and why am I getting pulled away? It's just not that is not again stimulating enough for me. So I need to be more active, and so it's like a lot of people will say that we lack attention. The thing is, we pay attention to everything. So you see, our peripheral vision. Frankly, I play basketball 2 or 3 times a week. I even made the high school team, but that was just I happened to have a good day that day. But that doesn't really matter. But the point is, peripheral vision. I'm a better passer than I am a shooter, and that's how it is for me. Is home. I see and hear everything all the time, which has a lot of pluses. There's a lot of pluses to that. I just keep adding to my list of things to do. But so it's almost like imagine Larry Bird, who I'm thinking is the best. I think is the best basketball player that ever played, and he would find something all around him all the time. If anybody was open, he'd find that person, and that's kind of where it is for me. Is I have peripheral vision and peripheral hearing. I hear everything. I even jump sometimes if there's something that, I'll startle easy. Because I've already got all these other noises going on, and then, boom, something else will, like if let's just say my daughter, who's 17, walks in with 3 of her friends and just enters the room real fast, and I might go out because I'm already in overdrive with all the other things I'm doing.
So I would say, I would call that energetically sensitive, I would say.
Oh, I love it.
Tuned
there
in,
you go.
Yeah. So
let me write that down.
Write it down. And then let me also tell everybody to please feel free. We're talking to somebody who's lives this and who's figuring out, how to, for years, live his life with this gift. So please feel free to call in 919-518-9773. And if you're somewhere in the world and you can't access a phone, you can come in to us on Skype. That's computers, plural. The number 2, K Voice. We'd love to have you. And also, if you're listening and you want to enter into some conversation that's going on in our chat, please feel free to put your name on the little line next to the video, and you can let us know you're there and just ask questions, because we'd love, comment. If you have experienced ADHD and you want to ask Dan a question, or you have somebody that you're living with, he is a great resource. Use him now, because that's what he's here for. So, Dan, you obviously, you know what it's like, and you've described some of what it's like to be you. So you don't know necessarily what it's like to be, not so stimulated. I mean, we all hopefully, have, time in our lives when we can be stimulated by things, and that's exciting, but certainly things in balance. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is your stimulation, you have to do your best consciously when you can to somehow maybe not balance it, but somehow work with it, put a lid on it sometimes, but just be aware that, you're being that way, or you're being that stimulated, and that you have to find the tools that that you can work with, right? Because you use the example of like on the weekend. So you get things done. It just may not look the way it's going to look for me. I might do this and get it finished. I might do this and get it finished. You're going to do 10 things, but you're going to get them finished.
I'm going to get them finished. In fact, I remember, 10 years ago or so, I was working with, I had a colleague who said to me, "How was your weekend?" And I went, "Very productive." And she went, "Productive?" Because she knew me as a trainer, which I still do. I mean, I speak and I motivate people through one-on-one and coaching or training. She saw me as someone that had a pretty good sense of humor. And then she saw me as someone, too, who always struggled with all this detail that we have to do, again, reports and things. So when I said productive, she just didn't see that. She thought, totally. And that was one of those aha moments for me, like, wow, people really do have a perception. They have a certain perception about ADHD. And in that she just couldn't believe that I would have anything to do with productivity, which I thought was interesting. Now, she loved me, she loved me. I was getting all this training. Clients loved my enthusiasm, so it wasn't about me being a poor performer at work. She just was surprised that on a weekend that I would say that I was productive. I think that really surprised her.
Right.
And, I wanted to tell you one thing before I forget to do it about the stimulation and trying to manage it and all that, okay? Because one of the things I found helpful, and again, I continue to be totally real and just say what I'm thinking. I don't always do this. These tips for coping, it's very easy to forget to do the very thing is working. It's working. So I don't always do this, but when I do this, wow, it works. Let's just say that I sit down at Panera, I get there in the morning, I sit there and I'm working on, again, creative things, my website, my LinkedIn profile, all these things, posting really great inspirational things, because that's what I do. I'm going with the humorous, inspirational side of this, with an occasional article, too, about how complicated it really is, but I'm also trying to be a bright spot with this. So I'll have when you're on the computer and you got like 14 or 15 different windows open. Here's another example where I get things done. By the end of that day, I've done this, I've edited that, I fixed this, I did this, I did that. But it's not like, okay, I'm just going to do this. However, if I have something that is due, I mean, we're talking this thing is due tomorrow or the next day. Maybe I'm doing a talk and the client has a certain thing they want to make sure I cover, and maybe I have put it off. I will have all these things on the bottom of the screen and all these windows open, and I go, okay, wait a minute. So I'll set a timer. Because, see, I want to check email every 5 seconds. That doesn't work. It just doesn't work, especially when you have something else that you really need to get done. So I'll set a timer, 45 minutes. And it is amazing when I have set a timer and said that the commitment is I'm not checking email for 45 minutes. It is amazing how I have adhered to that. I mean, I just go, nope, can't check email. It's amazing. And I think if I would do that every single day with everything I do, I don't know if I could say I'd get even more done, because I really do feel like I'm pretty productive. But that is something that for anyone out there who's listening, if you don't use timers for certain things, like maybe putting email off for another 45 minutes, it really is something by having that number, those numbers moving, going down, counting down, knowing that you'll eventually have a chance. It's worked for me. So I just wanted to say that.
So let me ask you, Dan. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. When it's not working, what's happening for you?
When it's not working? You're talking about specifically in this case the timer?
Yeah, when you don't time, or you talk yourself out of timing, or what's happening?
Okay. What I have found, this is just, again, my experience, by the way, everyone's going to have a different experience, but what I have found is if I take the time and actually go, I'm going to do this, and I commit to the timer, I have a perfect record on that so far. I have a perfect record with, if I set a timer, I adhere to that timer. So I found that to be a very effective thing. What I'm admitting, though, is I don't do it as much as I should, because but the tip is, if you do it, at least for me, it works.
So if you don't do it, what are you telling yourself? Is it that you can't, your window of opportunity, in other words, to talk to yourself is not there? Can you not slip in, okay, Dan, I have to do this now? Does that not exist in that moment? Tell me about that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it is interesting. You actually use the word window, and we have all the windows on the bottom. You used the word window in the question, which I think was very appropriate, talking about the window. It was good. I really liked that. I'm not sure if anybody else caught it or not, but again, peripheral hearing and vision, I see everything around me and hear all these little things. But when I have everything going on and there's 14 windows open, if I make the conscious decision, and by the way, conscious is a word I have a real hard time with saying. I'd love to know who came up with some of these words. What you're getting now is a tangent, which is something that we're very capable of doing. Because you didn't need to know that I have a hard time saying that word. Anyway, so I've got all these things on the bottom of the screen, and I know logically that if I would do the timer, and it's interesting, it isn't as if I have a conversation with myself and go, put a timer on. Nah, don't do that. It's just there are days I get so wrapped up in everything, it literally doesn't enter the mind. So it isn't as if it enters and I go, no. It's just there are days I just don't. I tell you what it is. And again, thinking out loud is obviously something else that people that are enthusiastic, not hyperactive. I like enthusiastic better. One of the things is that I think if it gets to the point where it's out of control, really out of control, I would probably do the timer. But just like at home on the weekends, as long as I'm getting things done and there's not a deadline, which means I can play with this stuff as much as I want to, and without someone calling me and throwing me in jail because I didn't get it done at a certain time. Hopefully I wouldn't make it in jail, by the way. Just want everybody to know that. I cry during movies. I wouldn't make it. Because you have to be a tough guy. I'm a swimmer. I play basketball. Anyway. Where was I? Oh, yes. So the timer thing, I probably should have stopped rambling about it. It works. When I don't do it, it doesn't work as well. But again, like on the weekend, as long as I'm being productive, it's not like I, at the end of the day, say, gosh, I wish I had used the timer because I got a lot done. I think where it would probably come in is if I wasn't getting enough done because I've realized I'm going to email too many times and checking. That's the struggle I have, is staying away from email because I want to be loved.
Right.
I want everybody to love me.
Right.
So I always check email to see if anybody wrote to say hello.
Right.
Which they never do.
Never. Well, they do, though. They just don't always. They do, but they just don't always tell you in an email. So I guess you're learning some of the tricks that work for you along the way.
Yeah.
And how to cope.
What I've always had is the attitude that I want to do better, and I want to not drive my wife away, because again, she's a very patient person. But for those of you out there who are married to someone that has ADHD, I'm sure you've learned that you have to be patient, and I am convinced. I'm just convinced that my wife was brought to earth to do three things. Number one. Be my wife, because I needed somebody really, really patient, and also to be a great mommy, and two or three other things that we could get into now. But she's super. You really have to, I think you have to take the time to understand ADHD. And if you could convince your spouse to maybe go see a coach or go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist and go with them to these appointments and start to understand it more. Plus, of course, heck, if you just Google, there's so much information and so many tips out there. But I think the first thing is to understand that your spouse is not trying to do this deliberately. I can't say for every single person, but more than likely they're not trying to drive you away. with their enthusiasm and their what seems like a haphazard approach to things. I just wanted to throw that in there, that patience is really important, and understanding ADHD, because there are so many wonderful things that come with ADHD. So many wonderful things. In fact, if you'll let me, I'm going to look down here for a second. I found something on the internet that we could be here for days if I read this whole thing, but just some of the positives that I was starting to notice in my evaluations as a speaker. And this is kind of it's one of those aha moments, in that in a world where all you hear, not all you hear, but mostly what you hear about ADHD is medications and scandal or whatever else. I mean, it's not a lot of positive things in the mainstream. And here I was, basically just being me when I taught. Just being me. My enthusiasm, my creativity, the things that other people tell me I bring to a training scenario. And I'm starting to think, maybe this is what I should be doing, is out there talking about the positives, because I've been successful as far as a speaker and a trainer, and I attribute it to ADHD. Because when you look at any of the positive descriptions about ADHD, it's who I am. Just like somebody else has strengths in other areas that I don't have. Other people might not be as creative as I am, but that's okay, because that's what makes the world go around. We're all different. Right. My wife's the most introverted woman in the world, but it's a good thing, because we kind of meet halfway, because I'm off the charts energy. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those, right? So I was finding that, gosh, you know what? People seem to like what I do and how I impact them. And again, I attribute this to ADHD, because when I was up in front of people, and when I am in front of people, I don't all of a sudden become somebody different. I just be me. And I'm telling you, when you look at every single, descriptor of ADHD, negative, and positive, I'm that person. I'm that person, like literally from beginning to end. And so, anyhow, but we are and this is a plug for all of you people that are out there that have ADHD. I'll bet you, if you think carefully about this, that you are probably an entertainer. I know that that's the number one thing I hear from people when I teach, but we are able to hyper-focus. We hyper-focus on things that matter, to us, as far as that are exciting. And of course, everyone could say, well, of course you're going to hyper-focus if it's something you like. No, we really have a hard time getting pulled away from something we enjoy. Just like we will put off until the ends of the end of time, we'll put off something we really don't want to do. But we'll do it. If I didn't deal with detail and all that stuff, I wouldn't be here anymore. You have to do that stuff. But, we do have that hyper-focus. We're innovative. We are definitely risk takers. I am self-employed, and that scares everybody that I know. But people get it, that it's really the right fit for me, because it's hard for me to maybe be in a situation where I have to only have 45 minutes for lunch, and if I'm 1 minute late, I'm going to get it written up, or whatever it might be. There's just a lot of reasons why self-employment works for me, because I'm creative, and I can use that creativity, and without someone going, no, we can't do that here. Because honestly, I've had full-time jobs where that's what it was like. Not all across the board, but there were jobs where my creativity was just being crushed. Crushed.
Dan, can I interrupt you a minute?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, hold on to what you're doing, because what you're doing is perfect. But I want to ask you, how do you relax, and how does somebody with ADHD relax? How do you allow yourself, or what do you do to relax?
We never do. No, I'm joking. A lot of it has to do with, and I'm not Mr. Nutrition. I'm not the one who could go out and go on a nationwide talk about nutrition, but definitely if days I don't have sweet tea, I don't do coffee, and I'm sure everybody that's listening and that knows me is very happy that I do not do coffee. Even decaf sends me off the charts. So anyhow, so the days I don't have sweet tea, and if I'm somehow brave enough to not have chocolate's probably my number one weakness, and anyway, and I'm eating maybe more protein and drinking more water, and again, anyone that's out there, if you just Google ADHD diet, you'll find plenty of information out there. But that's one thing I know for me, is to cut the caffeine and the chocolate down. That's one thing that will help me. to relax. The other thing is when I realize, let's just say that I'm stressed. Let's just say that, you know what, I need to go do something. I go swimming and I play basketball. And oh boy, I mean, I don't think that's a big surprise to anyone that exercise is key as far as relieving stress. But it really does make me feel so much better when I go swimming. I swim more than I play basketball only because you got to find a bunch of guys to play basketball, whereas you go swimming, the pool's there, and unless there's no lane, you swim. So okay. I swim more than I play basketball these days. But anyway, either way, that also helps.
Okay, I want to ask you. Okay, hold on,
yeah.
And you have to. I hope you'll forgive me for interrupting you, but you're saying things that I.
Fine.
Okay,
that's
great.
Fine. You need to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you. So you say feels better. What do you mean? How does that differ from the way? Okay.
I'll get more centered. I just kind of get a little bit more centered because sometimes, again, especially if it's detail kind of stuff that I really don't want to deal with, but I have to because it's reality. I can get to where I'm like, I got to go swimming. Okay. And I come home and I'm just more centered because I'll tell you the other thing, after I swim, I usually get in the hot tub and I just bake. So I go on from the exercise to just kind of baking. Not totally. I'm not like cookies.
Right.
I'm not baking cookies, but yeah. Anyway, and I'm more centered after I've exercised, which again I don't think would surprise too many people that that exercise and they know how that feels. But yeah, I mean for me, and again a lot of it to the swimming, so exercise in general, but swimming, basketball, and not eating the chocolate. Mm-hmm. Halloween, I remember the days when I'd ask my daughter, because how it is as a parent, you ask your daughter, okay, bring home some Mounds, bring home some Almond Joys. I mean, that's why I was always excited about Halloween. But then she brings it all home, and now I'm eating it, which really doesn't do me any good.
Right. So
I mean, what am I nuts?
Yeah, really. Okay, here's a question that Chris is asking, and she says, what do you think? Do those with ADHD tend to procrastinate on purpose to get a rush or facing a deadline? Is it a control thing or is it a feeling experience thing?
It's really, when I was in college, they give you the 17-week warning that you're going to have this test or this project due, 17 weeks later. And I remember being in the card catalog, because I went to school in like the 1700s. I remember being in the card catalog the night before, but there's a rush with that. Is that conscious? There's that word again, I can never say right. But anyhow, am I fully aware that, okay, I know what I'll do. I'll wait, and then it'll really get, stressful. Because first off, I've gotten better about if something is due Friday, I'm on it a week ahead of time now, not the night before. But not that it's done a week ahead of time, but I've learned through many painful experiences. So it's not deliberate. It's not a thing of let's create as much drama as possible. I know for me it was just, unless there was enough of you got to get this done, I would just take my time and then at the end be stressed. But I will tell you, one semester in college, I took 7 classes. 7. This was your traditional like 15, 16, 17 week from like, August to December type of setting. I took 7 classes and I ended up with my best GPA ever in that one semester. I had a 3.6. And that is because this was when I was in school and didn't even realize I had ADHD. I was just starting to learn about me and paying attention because I really want to do this right. I'm not just living my life going, yeah, I have ADHD. I do have ADHD, but I also want to do it right. But I didn't even know I had ADHD back then. I just knew that I struggled in certain areas. And one thing I knew, I started to really think about this, the busier I am, the better. So I actually got my degree in 3.5 years because I overloaded. The first 2 semesters I didn't overload and I did very average. Then I started to overload and I got my degree with like a 3.1 average and I did it in 3.5 years. Now, I've been on earth long enough to know that, and I've taught enough to know that right now there's probably someone, and it might be one of you in the studio or someone that's listening, who might say, no, wait a second. He doesn't like to read. I mean, he wants to read. It's just that he really struggles with reading. How did he get through college? I never missed class. Never. I took notes like like the end of the world was coming by Friday. If I didn't get every single thing written down, the world was going to end. In other words, I took it very seriously. I never missed class, and that's how I learned. It was very stimulating to listen and also write. And would I miss something here and there? Probably, yes. But that is how I got through schools. I never missed class, and I paid attention to every single thing these people were saying. And that was a struggle in some cases, depending on the personality of the instructor. No right or wrong. It's just that there were a couple that were a little more challenging of classes because I need, again, some energy and passion or some humor or something. But I just thought I'd share that with you, that
Okay.
I wasn't trying to brag about the college, but just what I learned, that the busier I was, the better.
Are you on meds?
Too many to count. I wish I had, seriously, being that I'm not at home, I don't have this bag in front of me to show you. But I'm on a couple things right now, but I will tell you before I forget to, I wish I could hold it up. Because again, I'm in Maryland right now, I don't have it in front of me, but I wish I could hold it up. All along, I thought, I'm going to keep these bottles, just the bottles of things that, the different types of things they've given me. Whether it be because the doctors will try to pin everything on you. They'll pin everything. They'll say it's depression, or it's, oh my gosh, OCD, or it's bipolar, or whatever. When I was going through this trying to get a doctor to believe I had ADHD, it wasn't so prevalent in the adult population, and I really struggled to get a doctor to finally go, yes, you have ADHD. So I have 26 bottles in a bag, and those are not 26 of the same prescription. Those are 26 different things that I worked through, different milligrams, gigabytes, whatever it is they call these things, milligrams or whatever, and different doses of this and that and the other. And finally, I have it to where it seems like I'm able to, to do a little bit better with things. But also, a lot of it is the attitude, the wherewithal to continue to just keep on going, because I want to not only live my life, but also inspire other people and motivate other people about hope and all that with ADHD. To answer your question, the roundabout way, I do take Adderall. What that does for me is it helps me sit down especially when I don't really want to be sitting down because it's not a creative project. So for Adderall, and again, everyone, this is just my experience. Obviously, you got to talk to your doctor. Don't just do this because Dan says so. But for me, Adderall works to help me sit still. And again, especially if it's a project I really don't want to have to deal with. I also do take lorazepam, which helps me sleep. Because for years, I struggled with sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and that was it. I would start thinking about everything that a human being can be thinking about, I was thinking about. And of course, then you get to sleep just about the time the alarm goes off. You know how that is. So what lorazepam does is it's an anxiety pill, anxiety is part of ADHD. And it helps me to, if I get up in the middle of the night to have a banana or whatever it might be, I'm able to go back to sleep. And for me, it's been a miracle having that, being able to sleep at night. But again, anxiety is part of this. I have a very wonderful doctor I see who with me, he's realized it's not just a stimulant. There are other things. With ADHD encompasses a lot of different things put together. You see, so anxiety is one of those. And so he gives me that to help me sleep. He gives me the Adderall to help me sit still. And that's something that kind of drives me bats when I hear about how it's all about stimulants. No, there might be other ways, in addition to diet and exercise, if you do want to use a medication, pinpoint what it really is within the ADHD that's causing you the most grief. And for me, my mind would not stop racing in the middle of the night. And so taking an anxiety medication has helped me, and Adderall helps me sit still, especially if it's a project where it's something I don't really want to be doing. So,
no, that's great. And you know what I'm amazed at, and which is really, I don't know if all of you have noticed this, but I've asked him a question, and he will go into this entire explanation about things, which is perfect, and then he'll go back to the answer of my question. And so I'm really impressed.
Thank you. I know that I appreciate that very much. And I notice when I teach, you can just tell at first, like for the first 5 minutes when people meet me, they're like, he's not going to remember where he was going. But I do. I'm able to bring it back and make the point. And it definitely tastes. Let me say that. Can we go cut?
Yeah. Can't cut live.
That whole sentence over. What I was going to say was it tests with an S at the end, tests people's listening abilities at first. And once they go, oh, I see, okay, he's going to come back. That's the thing. Even when I write, I do that. I'll notice that I'll be 2 paragraphs in, and my wife has said, you might want to let them know what the paragraph's going to be about initially, and then you can go on your tangent, because I will tell a story that has everything to do with ADHD, but it's a story. I use analogies and metaphors and all that. But in the end, I always make my point. So what my wife's trying to get me to do is to also in the very beginning, okay, this is going to be about, so that the reader doesn't go, where is he going? They know where it's going, and eventually, it's going to get there. So when I teach, I do the same thing, and it's just what I do. It's not strategized. It's just, in fact, I've had so many people tell me I should do improv. You know what? I need to start collecting dimes from every person that says I should do improv, because that's really where the gift is. And again, I'm giving credit to ADHD. I mean, look at Robin Williams and Jim Carrey. I'm not saying I am Robin Williams, and I'm not saying I am Jim Carrey, but I'm just saying those are people that have ADHD, and think about their techniques. I mean, Jim Carrey, I don't know the deal if he actually does say, if they make him just go ahead and just improv. Here's the idea, now do your scene. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the case.
Why would that be the case? Why is that something inherent to being ADHD?
Okay, I have had people in class say, you would be great in theater. No, I wouldn't. But I say to them, thank you, that's very nice of you to say, but because I do one of the gifts is that I go with the flow. We're very spontaneous. People that have ADHD are spontaneous. Now, this is where people would say it's impulsivity, okay? And sometimes the decisions we're making like that are not the best. But in a positive sense, it's spontaneous. When someone says to me, for example, what about theater? And then I'll get into something about why theater would not work. And I'll talk about how I'm supposed to memorize four chapters of something and then have everything just perfect, like I'm acting. Whereas I just go, it just doesn't fit me because it's too constrained. It's too by the book. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I just go with the flow, and it works. And again, I attribute ADHD to that ability to entertain people and to be spontaneous.
Well, and there is so much going on our chat that I can't even comment about all of it. So if you are watching us now and you haven't signed into the chat, I would suggest that you do. If you don't, certainly after the show, in the next day or so, we will have the show notes posted from this and I would love, you know what, I've never done this before, but you know what I'm gonna ask you to do, maybe, if you're willing. There's so many things on this chat. I might just send you, Dan, the chat. And if you want to comment on some of this, we'll do that. I'll figure out, we'll put it on the website and stuff. So go to MarilynShannon.com. You'll see the show notes in a couple of days. We'll ask Dan maybe to comment on some of this stuff, because there's a lot of things in this chat that I cannot, I can't go through all of them, but it's very interesting what people are commenting about. And I think it would be a great thing for us to pursue, because it's too good. And I know that, there's so much more we want to talk about. But so it's very worthwhile, and I appreciate everybody who's doing that, because you're really expressing a lot of things. And I think we have a phone caller, right? Okay, we have a caller. Hello.
Okay.
Hey, Marilyn. Hi, Dan. Hi, Amnon. It's Chris.
Hey.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, this is a great show.
Thanks. Marilyn gets all the credit. Actually, well, everybody does. It's just it is a really cool thing.
Yeah, we're all getting credit. So, you have a good question?
Well, I called in because I wanted to help you with some of the things that were going on with chat. We do have a very active chat today. And I just wanted to kind of catch you up on some of the comments and some of the great things that are coming through. And I guess we'll start with something that Debbie is saying about improv and theatrical speaking. And would be something potentially beneficial for someone whose mind thinks really fast.
And that is, and that is what I do, and that being a speaker, that is what I'm out to do, is to get in front of as many people as I can and inspire them and educate them a little bit more. And it just so happens that whenever I do that, like, for example, you can never give me a podium. You could give me one, but I'd probably sell it at a garage sale.
So why don't you tell her where you are right now? Because this is interesting. You are doing what right now to do the show? You're not in front of a podium, but what are you doing?
I'm standing up.
Standing up.
I had to set this up so that I could move around, whereas if I was sitting, I'd be in total agony. I'd be in prison. And again, I told you I wouldn't make it in prison. You see, so I have to be able to move around and all that. So anyhow, but it is the way that I do get, when I'm in front of people, it is my style. But I understand that some people are probably thinking, no, he really should do improv. And I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I kind of feel like that's what I do anyway, already, really. And I also want to be able to educate as well. So as opposed to just doing an improv thing where maybe I'm up in front of people and making them laugh, which I really like to hear people laughing, I also want to teach them too, you see. And so that's why I like what I do, because I get to combine the gift that I've been given with the idea of also educating people as well. So I'm not sure if that comment made sense after the question, but
it did. Actually, I'm wondering, did you always feel it was a gift, or and then my follow-up question would be, how did your parents raise you? Did you learn early that you had ADHD? It took a while, I'm thinking, until you found out into your adult years. How did that all play out when you were a young guy?
Okay.
First off,
I was going to say, first off, I was adopted, and I was adopted right away. So I don't know if maybe I'm imagining that I had siblings that had ADHD, and then I come along, they're like, you know what, forget it, we can't do this anymore. So I don't know what happened, but I was adopted right away, and my adoptive dad then died when I was 6. And he died right in front of me, and my mom actually was out for the night, so it was just me and my dad, and he had a heart attack. So on top of ADHD, I live with other things too. There's that whole abandonment, thing, because I was adopted. I don't know why. I was given up, and my dad passed away, and so I've had all that. I had adversity very, very young, lots of injuries, which is another trait of the ADHD, because we're impulsive and, again, enthusiastic, not hyperactivity or hyperactive. We're enthusiastic. And I visited at least three different times I was in emergency rooms because of an accident. 3 other times I came close to death because of just my impulsivity. But as far as when I realized I had ADHD, I was in my mid-30s. Now, again, I knew that things were going on, like when I was in college, and I knew that I needed to take as much as I could take so I wouldn't have the letdowns and the downtime. The busier I was, the better. Things like that. I was learning. But here's how I found out. A friend of mine said, Dan, I saw you on TV last night. And I'm thinking America's Most Wanted. I don't know what he was talking about. I was concerned. Because I'm thinking I'd been running away, from the law effectively at that point. But obviously I must have slipped up. No, that's not what it is. Anyway, so what happened was he said it's he finally got it, and he said, ADHD, that's what it is. Now, this was back in the Middle Ages, where you did not have the internet like it is now, of course, and I actually went to a bookstore. I'm not sure how many of you even remember what bookstores are, what they look like. But I went in, and I found a book. There was a whole shelf. Actually, there wasn't that much back then. This was mid-'90s. There were a few things. And I opened up one of those books, and you know how people say, you might want to sit down? You might want to sit down before I tell you this. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened. I looked at this and I practically fell over. I had to find a chair. I was reading about me from beginning to end. And for the first time, I was able to actually read something more than about a paragraph before being distracted. Because I couldn't believe what I was reading. I mean, both positive and negative, the challenges and the good things. It was amazing. So that's when I went to my doctor, and that's when I was talking earlier about how my doctor had said, no, this is really more just a kid's thing. Again, this is mid-90s, Now it's all over the place, and people are always talking about adult ADHD and all that. But anyway, so that's kind of when I learned about it, was a friend just saying he saw me on TV. And I was glad that I wasn't on the run, because if I was on the run, I would have had to start running again. The witness protection program only can go for so long.
You're probably you would be very hard to catch. I'm imagining.
That's correct. 14 points for you and 6 for you.
Let me tell you, and a notch. So hold on a minute. So Chris, what other questions have you gotten from the chat? Because I know that.
Okay, one of the questions that came up with, what advice would you have for parents raising children with ADD, ADHD?
Okay. My daughter is 17, and I am not saying she has ADHD. So if you're out there, Danielle, my daughter, if you're out there, I'm not saying that you have ADHD. But I know that when I was growing up, I was, my mom was positive, but a lot of times she wasn't with me. She, again, great mom, but just like every other mom, you have your moments, right? So it's reality. And I don't know what it was that made me think this way with my own daughter. But, so again, I'm not saying she has ADHD, but just as a parent, this seemed to work for me, because she's really turning out to just be a wonderful human. One thing that I did, I've always made sure she knows how special she is. I don't go 3 weeks without telling her that she's my favorite girl, or that, all these different things. There's all kinds of things, that I'll do and I'll say. But about 6-7 years ago, she put, right outside of her bedroom, she put a little mailbox, and it literally said, mailbox. And I don't know if she really expected anybody to ever put anything in it. But what I did was, not every day, because I didn't want it to become like, well, here's another note. But at least 3 days, if not 4 days a week, I'd slip something in that little mailbox outside of her door. And I really feel like self-esteem-wise, that really helped her a lot. Because in middle school, as I'm sure a lot of us can relate, in middle school she had some struggles. I know I did too when I was growing up. But that's one thing, is the positive reinforcement, because they're going to hear the negative reinforcement. The negative stuff is going to happen at school. And I don't mean by teachers. I mean by other kids. I was also, in addition to everything else, I was bullied when I was growing up. And I'm sure it was because of some of the things that, were not positive things about ADHD, but also, frankly, the charm. These guys wanted to beat me into the next week because all the girls wanted to talk to Dan, because I was a charmer. That's actually one of our positives, is we're charming. We just are. And Marilyn, you said it in the very beginning, and I didn't even ask you to say that word. But really, bullying, however it starts, for whatever reason it starts, I do think that we stand out. We're unique enough in both our challenges and also the positives, that we stand out enough to where there will be kids who don't get it. They don't understand. Why is this person so enthusiastic? What is wrong with this person? Because maybe at home they're not getting reinforcement. They're not being told how much that they're loved for who they are, as opposed to, let's find a drug so we can calm you down. And so that's the thing with my daughter and my son. I mean, I talked about my daughter because she's still living there, but my son as well has moved out. He knows how I feel about him. If something were to happen to me today, they know how I feel about them. And so that reinforcement in a world where they're not getting a lot of reinforcement, I think helps. I mean, and again, maybe like I said earlier, with the timer, and of course their diet, keep the chocolate out of the picture, and do some research on that. Those are just some of the things. I mean, if we had 5, 6, 7 hours.
Well, we're gonna have to. We'll have to do this again for sure, because this is very important. Chris, I don't know if you're going to bring this one up, so let me do this. In the chat, Kathy is asking, what do you suggest for people who do start projects and don't finish them? What do you suggest for that person?
Well, I'm wondering why they're not finishing. Well, okay, wait. Let me back up. One of the traits that's not as desirable is that we do not finish some projects because we run out of gas with them. Because we are so creative, we start thinking of something else that is a little bit more interesting because we've spent so much time on this one thing. So we start to go ahead and go on to something else. In my case, I have 3 books that I'm working on that I can't quite finish. I got 3 strong books, but I can't finish them. And there'll probably be a 10th one by the end of the year that I had started. So, I mean, that's something I struggle with as well. What I have tried to do with this kind of thing, where I'm tempted to say, let me go to the next thing. Why did I start this to begin with? I mean, there's obviously a reason. It wasn't just for the heck of it. What was my goal? And maybe if the goal has in fact changed, then maybe it's okay that you didn't finish it. But then maybe you can use some of the things in my case, if you let me just use me as an example. I've got some things that maybe I've decided I'm not going to finish that book. Well, why does that material have to totally go away? Why can't I use some of that material when I speak? So it doesn't have to be that stuff I've written is never going to be used. I could use it verbally maybe. So maybe if there's something that you haven't, you're just not interested in finishing, you're just not interested. What are some of the things in that project that you can use and look at that project as a great example of something that taught you something else that you can then use again? Because I do think we live in a world where we're supposed to complete everything, but what if it's just, frankly, not meant to be completed? Maybe that was just a part of the process for you to get to something else that might even be bigger and better. So I'm not sure the name of the person who's asked. Kathy, was it?
Yes.
Kathy, okay. With a C or a K?
With a C.
With an I or a Y?
Y.
Okay, just wondered. There's so many ways you could spell.
Listen, okay, so we're getting what you did, Chris, was fabulous.
Well, I'm glad it helped. There's still more questions, though, which is why we need to do another show.
Okay, so we're going to, Dan, if it's okay with you, we're going to come back and do this again.
Yeah, can we get you again, Dan?
Absolutely. I'm having a blast.
Yeah, this has been, hold on, Chris, don't go anywhere. I just want to say something. One of the things that my observations that I'm noticing about Dan and ADHD, because I have, I think, I have a very close relative who I believe is ADHD, ADD, but was diagnosed with ADHD, is this sensitivity, obviously. When you're super creative, you are super sensitive to a lot of things. And along with that comes deep emotion, deep connection to everything. Chris, we always talk about the dreamer, the person who can not just connect to people in general, but to the trees, to the sky, to the grass, to the animals, to the birds, to everything. And I think that this is something that we want very much to honor with people who have the gift of being full of enthusiasm, is this notion of this creativity and the sensitivity to connection and to being full of love. You can't be creative without having this tremendous connection and compassion. And so Dan, you really have just I can't even put it into words, but you have really charmed the heck out of me.
Now, wait a minute. Am I going to be beaten up by somebody, though, because of that?
No, but this has been great. Chris, is there any final anything that's a quick something? Because we want Dan to share his website and all of that. Is there a quick something you have?
I don't have anything great to share. I'm going to step aside and let Dan do his thing and look forward to seeing him again really soon. Thanks so much for being part of our show today, Dan.
You're very welcome. Thank you for all the kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah, right. Thank you for what you did. I appreciate it. And everybody out there, hold on just a second. Dan, final words and a short, 5, 6 words, 10 words, final.
5, 6 words?
Yeah.
Okay. I love what I do, and I definitely want to make as much of an impact as I can out there. And I do have a website I am blogging, which was something else. I was always like, oh, I don't want to do that. I was thinking administrative wise. You know what? It's creativity. It's creativity, and I'm loving it. And I'm even tweeting now, something that everybody said, oh, you got to do it. I was like, I'm not tweeting. And every day I pick up more followers because it is a very hot. I think it's the hottest topic there is. I really think it actually truly is. Other than, well, there's other things I'm sure, like the healthcare scenario. But I mean, ADHD is right up there, big time. And so. I definitely want to make a big difference, and I want to show the positives of ADHD and also educate people on some of the challenges. And as I said earlier, it's not just about birds and squirrels and planes. This sounds like a movie. Wasn't there a movie, Planes, Trains, Automobiles? We could have a sequel. Well, we will get into that some other time. But do you want me to give them?
Yes, I do. Go ahead. Bodacious, okay. Bold, share who you are.
Okay. If you go to, of course, www.theadhdspeaker.com, theadhdspeaker.com, that's my website, and on the website, of course, I have links. There's a page with my blog. There's Twitter. I have a Twitter page showing the tweets I'm putting up, and of course. So the ADHD speaker. If you type in that for Twitter, for Facebook, I mean those are the pages I have. And again, you'll find a lot of positive, some humorous things in there. I've also done some YouTube videos, and that's where I think people really get thrown because I think they think it's going to be a doctor behind a podium talking, and it's not. It's me kind of showing my creativity as far as how I get my messages across. So I want to make a big difference, and I definitely want to come back to the show.
Absolutely. We're going to book you, absolutely. Because I think we should.
Thank you.
Yeah, we should continue, as you said in your bio, something about unadvertised, these things are unadvertised. I mean,
they really are.
They really are. And we want We want more and more ADHD people to speak up. We want more people to share their gifts, their creativity, and come forth and
Yeah, and I think that's what I think that's why I bring a lot to the equation because I've been a speaker forever and I've had ADHD forever. And you have people who have ADHD but really don't want to get in front of the crowds. You have people who love getting in front of the crowds but don't have ADHD. I have both components, and I really feel that's why I'm here on Earth now. I really feel like it's my mission. So absolutely.
So I want to thank you so very much for being here and for doing this with us because I know you've made it work. He's in a motel room up in Maryland because he's going there for work. He's standing, not sitting. He's made it work for him. And I have the name Marilyn across my forehead. He has the word Dan across his forehead. You have your name across your forehead. Your forehead. Yes. Make your life work for you. Period. Mm-hmm. If it's working, who cares if you're standing up? Doesn't matter. It's great. It's working for him. I honor that. It means that somebody else out there is going to stand up or sit down or lie down or who cares. So, Dan, bless you. Thank you for being here. You were terrific.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone out there.
It was wonderful.
Thank you, Chris, and everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for your participation. Look for Dan again on this show. I'm Nan. Love you bunches. Everybody, talk to you. See you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
My pleasure.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.